Right, so I made a video about this a while back, and it seems like they're more looking like interested in going through with it. At the time, I wasn't sure, but it's this issue of making the people with news websites and stuff register with the government. Now, like I say, like I mentioned at the time in the video, this is a very scary precedent, and it seems like they're going to go through with it. And like I say, that's an extremely scary precedent, and for all the people that scoff when someone brings up about how Canada is heading into in a for lack of a better word, totalitarian way. Um, like I say, I don't really have words for that because or words for you because we're just going there closer and closer. You have like it makes no sense because you have Justin Trudeau literally saying on camera that the country he admires most is a communist country. He talks about how great their basic dictatorship is. Like, when are we going to wake up and realize that? Now, um, a lot of people saying, well, where's the the commie government or any of that kind of stuff? Well, they do it slowly. Like they do it slowly. Like the example I always hear is that when eBay first came out, their symbol was yellow, I believe, and one day they decided to change it to white, and people were outraged. It's why is it white? Why is it white? Like people were super mad. So they changed it back to yellow, and over a period of like a year or two, they just incrementally like 0.1, 0.2% every day changed it back to or changed it to white. And no one complained. And that's what the government does with this kind of stuff. They don't go you don't go from a free, bastion of a free market, borderline anarchist or libertarian utopia to a communist regime or communist country overnight. It happens over generations usually. I mean, look at Karl Marx. The guy was around in like the 1840s, 1850s, and communist countries, they started to come into place. And I believe the early mid 1900s was Russia the first one. Again, I'm not an expert on on the history of communism, but it took a while for that stuff to fester and to build up. And Canada's headed that way, and especially the fact that immigration levels are so high that I don't like I always say I don't think everything's we're going to get a right leaning government maybe ever again in Canada. Now they might call themselves conservatives, they might call themselves some right wing name, but I don't think we're ever going to get a true right wing government elected in Canada for a long time. Eventually, the entire system's going to collapse. And a lot of people that are dependent on welfare, dependent on government, free healthcare, all that kind of stuff, they're going to have to leave and, or just, well, I mean, as bad as it might be to say, die. And people finally realize, hey, we can't keep doing this. And then a more right wing government will be elected. But basically bringing this full circle, this is getting really, really, really scary, and Canada is headed in a very scary direction. Like I always say, most of the people watching this probably agree with me. I'm probably preaching to the choir, but I'm sure you people, don't take that the wrong way, know someone, whether it's friend or family, that is completely asleep, that's completely, fell hook, line, and sinker for all the BS propaganda from the mainstream media, from the colleges, from the public schools, and you need to talk to them. But like I say, 95% of the time, you're not going to change people's mind. The simplest way to figure out whether or not you can change people's mind is to point out obvious contradictions. And 99% of people, even me, I've noticed some. Like I always try and get better, but I've noticed some personally. Um, Point out obvious contradictions in their way of thinking, and if they don't acknowledge it, and usually they'll just double down and be like, no, you're still wrong, and all that kind of crap, then you're never going to change their mind. So that, like I said, that's an easy way of doing it. But anyway, I don't want to make this video too long because, like I said, I could rant forever. But when you have Justin Trudeau praising a communist country, like, what's it going to take? Like, imagine if Trump came out and praised, I mean, I know it's hyperbole, but Nazi Germany. What if Trump did that? I don't know about a country that there isn't really a fascist country out there anymore, but let's just say Trump praised any old dictatorship or any old, totalitarian government out there nowadays. The media would be all over it. It would be front page news. It would be the biggest issue ever. It'd be justification for impeaching him, but Justin Trudeau does it, and no one cares. And that's the fundamental difference between the left and the right, I think, is that the left is so collectivistic that they don't criticize their own no matter what. They don't criticize, Jordan Peterson always talks about it. And I know a lot of people don't like him, but whatever. The one thing he always talks about is that we haven't established as a society when the left goes too far. What we've established when the right goes too far, and not only that, we've gone too far, and that we accuse anyone on the right who's the least bit controversial, and not that that's any reason for silencing them in any way, but controversial, let's say, from the leftist point of view, that we've justified silencing them, and it's a complete rank, double standard, and that if you're off in the slightest degree on the right, then you're raked over the coals. But if you're, Bernie Sanders, little people working for his campaign calling for gulags to be brought back for political dissidents, no one cares. They weren't fired. Like I say, no one cares. Imagine the outrage if Donald Trump, field organizers, people working for his campaign, were calling to bring back the gas chambers. Like, that's the equivalent. If anything, gulags were worse. Um, Imagine that. That would be the biggest news story of the decade. Like, literally, that's not hyperbole. And yet, like I say, Bernie Sanders field organizers do the same thing. No one cares. They're not fired. Mainstream media couldn't care less. And that's probably one of the biggest problems in society nowadays, is this double standard. And like I say, the reason for it is that the right is generally so individualistic that they don't care. It's just, oh, buckle down, we'll fight through it. The left is so collectivistic that anytime there's something that goes against their self-interest, they're there, and all their friends are there, their lefty friends are there to defend them. And that's a big issue. But anyway, getting back to this issue, like I say, just to sum it up, this is a very, very scary precedent for Canada. And it's not like there already isn't a massive bias, like YouTube, Google, all the big tech companies completely biased to the left. Again, please don't question that. Please don't write in the comments they're not biased. They're clearly biased. None of that. You have Project Veritas with undercover videos of literal people working at YouTube, Twitter, all these companies, literally admitting they're biased. So, like, you got to have your head so deep in the sand to think that they're not biased. Like, I don't even have words for you. Uh, and like I say, mainstream media, all that kind of stuff defending the left. But basically, I don't want to talk anymore about this issue because it bothers me a lot. But like I say, Canada's headed down a very scary path. All you can do, make your voices heard. I mean, two things. Make your voices heard. When this kind of stuff comes up in conversation, don't be silent. And number two, support people speaking the truth too. That's something the left supports people that speak, what they believe. The right tends to struggle with that a little bit, and that's something that the right has to improve. And a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm not right wing." Oh, a better way of putting it, I would say, is you're not on the left. Um, Anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. If you like the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. I have my PayPal linked in the description. I have an email for e-transfer. If you any donations, again, I'd really appreciate. And like I say, at the very least, just hit that subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for more videos.